Well, I don't read books, so I should probably readjust. Just ironing my background, like usual. I don't know if that worked. This table is really low. This looks really stupid. What have I done? Hello everyone, welcome to today's video. We are finally done with 2021. It was a very difficult year to say the least. I just want to say this setup took forever. You do not know how much work I do for you, okay? Yeah, I watched a lot of movies this year, a lot of new releases. This is a first time for me because I don't go out to see a lot of new releases, and a lot of these that I saw for the first time were like near the end of the year, and they came out like near the beginning of the year, so it really does take me a while to really warm up to something. I like watching older films. By older, I mean like stuff from the 90s. Not that old. I'm still a dumb little Gen Z kid. So for today's video, I'm going to change the background again for each movie that I talk about, and I'm going to change my shirt just to make it more visually interesting, so you guys don't get bored of me talking about the same thing over and over again. I appreciate your support. It's been a fun year. There's been a lot of stuff that I've missed for sure. Ridley Scott made 2 new movies, one of which looked kind of stupid, and the other looked fun and interesting, and you know which one I'm talking. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to mention fun. I missed the Paw Patrol movie, everyone's favorite. I missed a lot of foreign flicks. There's just a lot of stuff that I missed out on because I just don't really care that much about new stuff that's released. So yeah, I only seeked out mostly American films, and I feel kind of bad about that, but whatever. My biggest loss of the year, though, you're not gonna believe this because I am considered by many to be a classic film bro, okay? Just don't mean to brag, just like to put that out there. I missed Denis Villeneuve's Dune. I wanted to see it in the theater, and then I never got the chance to. So I'm still here. I want to watch it at home, but I feel like it's not going to be the same experience if I like don't watch it in the theater for the first time. It's kind of one of those that you need to watch in the theater. So yeah, let's talk about not my favorite films of 2021. I'm ranking all, what is this, 24 2021 movies I saw. Doesn't seem like that much, but like to me that's a lot, because last year I only watched 11 films, and that video was like 45 minutes long. It's gonna be a long night. Yeah, I really didn't want to talk about Dear Evan Hansen. I am so appalled that a major studio even thought about putting money into this project. It's really, really embarrassing. Now, you may be thinking, if you've seen the trailers, it can't be that bad, can it? Yes. It's that bad. Look, I'm not one of those people that just trashes on stuff for the sake of trashing on stuff. Dear Evan Hansen, from the get-go, just has a really difficult plot to pull off. I'm not saying it can't work, because it definitely can. Dear Evan Hansen takes this really disgusting concept and it plays it straight, which is the worst way to play this sort of film. I mean, if you don't know what it's about, I'm gonna have to give you some caution. Dear Evan Hansen is about a kid named Evan Hansen who's sad and depressed and has social anxiety, and he has a crush on this girl. It doesn't seem like it's that important at first, but then it becomes a major part of the story. There's a kid in his school that like sees him writing a letter to himself, which is something that like his therapist told him to do. I'm gonna write this letter to myself like in the school in front of everybody where someone could read it, and then he prints it out in the school, and this kid sees it. The kid is like all depressed, gets teary-eyed, and runs out and takes the letter from Evan because he doesn't want it to get out or something. I don't know. Basically that night the kid kills himself. We don't really know how, and man, it took a real dark turn there. The parents mistake Evan as being Connor's friend when they see that this Dear Evan Hansen letter that Evan wrote to himself was in the kid's pocket when he killed himself. And then things lead to another, and before you know it, Evan is pretending to be this kid's friend. And he's manipulating this family, telling stories about their son that are not true and never happened. He just continues to go with lie after lie after lie. Now, to Evan's credit, it's not totally his fault as to being mistaken for that. The parents kind of pushed this pressure on him. They were like, "What? You should have been friends with him. This letter is addressed to you." And he like tries to explain it, and then they're like crying and stuff. Oh, the mom is crying. The dad does not care. I'm going to talk about that in a second. But basically, this family thinks that Evan was friends with him. And guess what? The girl he has a crush on is the dead kid's sister. So you know what he does? And it's very awkward. There is so much stuff in here that I could dig into, and part of me wants to do like a review or an analysis on this film and what doesn't work about it, but you've seen so many videos dedicated to this topic. A good one that you should check out if you haven't already is a video by Jenny Nicholson. It is the best review of this film and one of my favorite movie reviews on the entire internet. She articulates her thoughts so well. I love that video so much. It's like an hour long, but she is so good at getting down to what doesn't work about that movie. Seeing it portrayed this way, where there's not really a real consequence, he doesn't get like much credit. Like, people put up memorials and stuff for him, but they keep praising Evan. They keep sucking up to him, and they keep saying, "You were his friend. You're such an amazing human being." And Evan's like, haha. He uses this all for his own personal self-gain, and it really pisses me off. I hate this movie with a burning passion.
Before I lead with the worst of me, I never let them see the way.
And the thing is Ben Platt is not this ghostly looking. He actually does kind of have a youthful face, but they just did something. I don't know if it was with the makeup or with the wig or something, but it looks awful. Like, just look at his face. I do not like looking at this. I know this is like supposed to be like, oh, accept who you are and all this stuff, but why do you need to like make this performance and this look of this character so comically overdone? Like, Ben Platt's performance does not really feel like someone with social anxiety. Like, I do not believe this guy actually has social anxiety. It really does feel like a performance. They don't really acknowledge what he's doing is wrong. The film just does not treat its subject with any kind of respect or thematic weight. It really just feels confused. There needed to be a studio executive in the room that was just like, alright guys, this is a bad idea, let's not make this. Or maybe approach it differently. It's really sad because Steven Chbosky made The Perks of Being a Wallflower, which is one of my favorite explorations of mental illness. What Dear Evan Hansen is like so far removed from The Perks of Being a Wallflower. I can't believe the same director made one of the best and one of the worst films that explores this topic.
They fly now? They fly now!
I don't really know where to begin with Free Guy because I don't really feel like yelling about it. I really don't have the energy to just throw a fit. Let me just say, this movie sucks, and I don't really understand the love for it. Dear Evan Hansen didn't get very much love, but it did get some, which was kind of concerning. The difference between Dear Evan Hansen getting love is it actually pisses me off that some people like that movie. With Free Guy, I don't really care that much because that film is far less harmful. I really didn't understand why some people found this fun because I thought it was a very brainless, pandering corporate product. It really didn't have anything to offer for me. Some people say that this film is original. I don't know what you're talking about. This is really references the movie. It doesn't really have any real substance or flavor to it. It is all just jumbled together nonsense. I really did feel like I lost some brain cells while watching it. It's just so loud. There's so much crap flying all over the screen. The music is just obnoxious. The performances are super exaggerated, but not in a charming way. I don't really know of anything I liked about it, to be honest. And I'm still trying to understand why some people enjoy it and put it in like their top 10s of the year. Why would anyone put this in the top 10? The fact that Ryan Reynolds is playing essentially himself, somebody who just walks around in a world where everyone loves him. All he does is just advertise stuff. That's really, he's really just playing himself. Yeah, sure, he's likable in some ways. I really feel bad for Jodie Comer, I think is her name. She seems like a good actress, but was not utilized well in here because she has some really bad lines. There is a scene where Ryan Reynolds holds a lightsaber and she like goes back in her chair and she's like, "Oh yeah, guys, he's got a friggin' lightsaber."
Hold on, is that a Hansen? Yes! That's a lightsaber, dude.
It's not the 1980s where if you reference Star Wars, it's a huge deal. People have been referencing Star Wars in movies for years and decades, generations. And so I just don't see why people love this so much if it's just pop culture references just shoved into this cynical corporate project. You have so much stuff to work with. There's, like I said, there's a lot of crap flying around all over the screen. At least add some color to it. Come on. It's just like, we have an IP. We own all of these things. We're 20th Century Fox, baby, and guess who owns us? That's all it is. It's like Ralph Breaks the Internet, except it's not funny or entertaining. It's ridiculous, and everyone's watching it like it's the end of a sports movie where they're all watching at home on TV and they're all like, "Yeah, you go, man." Everyone's cheering. There's like this big orchestra and everything playing. It's so inspirational, but I don't understand, like, what are they looking at on their screen? What is it? Are they playing the game? Are they watching the game being played by someone else? Is this all happening at the same time? Is everyone playing this game and at this exact world following this character all at the same time? I don't understand the logic, the concept. Free Guy sucks. I don't like it. And that's it. Yeah, Cherry is something I kind of hate, but I don't really hate it, if that makes sense. Like, it's something that doesn't settle well with me personally, but it doesn't like piss me off like the past two films have. So I guess we can say we're in a place where I'm not that angry. I'm glad about that. The Russo brothers made what is arguably the most successful, the biggest blockbuster ever made, and from that they go to something that's a little more small scale, more of a character piece, kind of like Forrest Gump meets Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas or Casino, and it really just turns into something that's so ambitious, which is great. I love me some ambition. That's why this movie doesn't really make me that mad, because it's ambitious. At least it's trying to have a vision. This movie looks nice. I actually do think it has a nice visual flavor, but not an aesthetic I can say is consistent, unfortunately. It is constantly moving from thing to thing and place to place, aspect ratio to aspect ratio. It's breaking the fourth wall. It has all of these music choices that it goes from like opera to like heavy metal to like jazz. It's so weird to me. It just keeps moving and moving and moving and moving, and then like everyone is screaming for some reason. It's a loud movie, that's what I'll say. But despite that, I still respect the craft that went into this. There's a lot of talent that goes into creating this aesthetic, but I did not care about any of the characters or the situations. I barely remember what happens, because I mean, I saw this like near the beginning of 2021, so like a year ago. Tom Holland I remember being good, but sometimes just like overdoing it. All I have to say is there's one scene in here where I think he takes a shot of heroin while the police are chasing him down the street. He gets out of his car and like crawls on the road, and he's like on the curb taking a heroin shot as he's getting arrested. This movie's trying so hard to be edgy, just doesn't work. But again, I appreciate what it was trying to do. It just did not land in any way for me.
Natasha, don't slouch.
I'm not slouching.
Yeah, I'm honestly a little surprised seeing this one this low. I cannot tell you a single thing that happens in Black Widow. I saw it in the theater with my dad, and we both came out saying it was a movie. I think this is by far one of the worst made MCU films I've seen. Like, it was noticeably bad in the filmmaking realm. I don't really notice bad cinematography in a Marvel movie, but this just has so much shaky cam. Like, even just during conversations, it's just like all over the place, and I'm just like, yo, calm down. It's exhausting to watch over the time. It's nauseating almost. It was just so over the top. But the question here is, why make a Black Widow movie now? People have been asking for a Black Widow movie for years, and then they kill her off in Endgame, and then 2 years later they're like, hey guys, we've got a Black Widow movie for you. And I'm like, she's dead. We don't care, man. There's no new information presented in here. You know, at least with like Captain Marvel, the worst Marvel movie, has something there in regards to developing things, introducing new information, new ideas, new creatures. Nothing in here feels new. It all feels like a run-of-the-mill Marvel action film. It doesn't offer anything of substance. There's nothing remotely emotional in here. I remember a few jokes that I did like, but for the most part, most of the humor in here just was like, and it's not the right time, man. It really did feel forced, and that's kind of a problem I had with all of the Marvel movies that came out this year, is they just had so much forced humor in there. They had that in the past, don't get me wrong, but it's getting worse. Like, they're really jamming in jokes at serious moments just to loosen the tension because they don't think that we can take it or something. By Marvel standards, I haven't seen a Marvel movie that I've like actively disliked walking out of the theater, but I did. I did not like this movie.
Hey, I have a big one.
I saw it, but I didn't even know this movie was coming out until my mom was like, hey kids, because my siblings were, this was over Christmas break, so my siblings were in town. She was like, we're watching Sing 2, and they were all like, yay, and I was like, I didn't even know this movie was coming out, did you? Really, I didn't see a single trailer for this. I saw this really bad poster, but I didn't think it was real. Contrary to popular belief, I don't think Sing is awful. Like, I definitely understand the distaste towards Sing. It's just animals singing songs that already exist, but I find it mildly enjoyable. It's probably my favorite Illumination film besides the first Despicable Me, which is the best thing ever created. Sing doesn't bother me that much, so going into this I was like, whatever. That's exactly how I felt coming out. What makes this a lot worse than the original film? That original movie was about a singing competition. This is about putting on a musical on stage, which means they have to write their original music. From the original film, it was just a singing competition. Like, them singing covers of other songs wasn't that surprising. That's what singing competitions usually are. I don't think people write their own songs for singing competitions. But for, like, a musical, you have to write your own music. So, with Sing 2, they don't do that. They just do the same thing the first one did. They take a greatest hits track from like 2015 and then they just play that through the whole movie. Anything that's popular, any pop song, Shawn Mendes music starts playing like multiple times throughout. I don't understand, like, you can hire songwriters, right? You can just write your own original music. It's hard work, sure, but like, it's better than just not writing music at all. It's a company commercial disguised as a movie. That's what Illumination's always been known for. It's no different from the other stuff they've made, but unlike something like the Lorax or Minions, I hate Minions, has some charm. It does have some stuff in it that I'm like, that was likable, I guess. So yeah, I don't hate it. I don't feel the need to hate it. When I saw those trailers, I was just so sick and tired of the remakes and the reboots. Disney just pooping out anything they can have their hands on. It's all we do now. When I heard that people were liking Cruella, I was like, alright, I'm interested. I like it more than I thought I would, just because I like the camera work. Craig Gillespie made this film. He also made I, Tonya, which is a really fantastic biopic that's directed like a Martin Scorsese film. And this obviously takes a very similar style. It's a lot of quick cutting and montages and narration, and the camera is constantly moving, but not in a way that Black Widow did it. It's not shaking all over the place. It has nice, smooth camera movement. I like that. Okay, I like that. My problem with this is it's not conveying anything. Just because a shot looks fun and cool, it really isn't conveying anything. I wrote a review and I said, the pros, the soundtrack and the camera work. The cons, soundtrack and the camera work. Literally the same issues I had, because that doesn't really make it fun and cool organically. It's really just taking the music, the character. It relies on nostalgia. It relies on music you've heard before. While stuff is happening, doesn't really mean stuff is actually happening. Like, organically. It tries to act like it's this original story, and definitely there are times where I'm like, oh my gosh, they're really going there. Moments of it are entertaining, like large chunks of it are entertaining, but I don't think the whole package is entertaining throughout. Just because stuff looks cool doesn't make it a good movie. This has grown on me just a little bit, but really that's just because of Timothée Chalamet. I don't make the rules, but Timothée Chalamet is literally the best part of this film. The man is a comedic talent, and I really want to see him star in more comedies and less serious roles. Don't Look Up may be the worst directed film I've seen all year. Just because you can do something with the camera doesn't mean it means anything.
Extinction level event.
Wow, let's not be dramatic here.
Okay, really, my issue with this film is it feels very, very ham-fisted in how it is portraying how the government responds to serious events. Now, I've heard people say, people are just hating on this movie because you know this would happen in real life. I'm not doubting that this would happen in real life, that the government would actually respond to a global situation like this, but the way they portray it is very over the top, and I get it, that's the point, it's satire, but I feel like the satire is dialed up a little too much. You really do feel like you're watching like Anchorman or something, but that's like specifically a comedy. Don't Look Up is supposed to be a political satire. Satires are at least supposed to reflect the real world in some kind of way, and there are points where it just feels too banana-brained and ridiculous, where it's just pushing the line of exaggeration too far. I don't personally enjoy that approach. It's a movie where everyone is just screaming at the top of their lungs, the world's gonna end. Yes, we know that. I don't know why are you telling us this a million times? Literally, like every other scene, Leonardo DiCaprio or Jennifer Lawrence is just screaming, and you guys aren't doing anything about it. Have some kind of subtlety in some way. Again, I know it's supposed to be exaggerated, but not to this degree. I can't suspend my disbelief anymore. Like, I just feel like it's going too far. It feels like the script was like this thin, and then they just stretched it out to like 2.5 hours. It's almost impossible to feel the weight or impact of anything going on. There's too much comedic talent in this movie for me to take this message seriously. But it's Adam McKay. He doesn't make films that know how to balance subtlety and satire. This probably made climate change worse, and the world is going to end because of this movie's existence. But I still enjoyed it because of Timothée Chalamet. I feel bad for putting Encanto this low, just because it's very harmless. On paper, I should enjoy this more, but maybe I'm just kind of Disney fatigued, because I really didn't get a ton of enjoyment out of watching this. I went to see this with my cousins and my uncle, and I mean, it was cool hanging out with my cousins. We talked during it for most of the time. I really do appreciate this film. I'm actually really glad that it's been getting a lot of love. I feel like this could be a big cult classic soon. It could like gain this nice little fan base. I really like this idea of it just being about a family in a house, and there's no big conflict, there's no giant fight at the end. It just ends. Like, it resolves the conflict in a clean way. It's so small scale, it's aggressively small scale, but unlike something like Kiki's Delivery Service or My Neighbor Totoro, this doesn't really offer a ton for me emotionally. I didn't identify with a lot of the characters. I know a lot of people do. Again, I really do appreciate the fact that this film has a fan base. I think it deserves it. I feel like there's a lot of love oozing out of this project, but it's not something I particularly gravitate towards. I don't know. I saw it in the theater, thought that was nice. I walked out, I forgot about it, and I haven't really paid much attention to it since. Is it bad? Absolutely not. You should go see it. I do recommend it, but personally, not for me, baby. I feel like this movie has been completely tainted now with all this stupid controversy surrounding the slap, which no, I will not be providing my opinion on that pure stupidity. Some say it soured the film for them, but I didn't even think it was that good to begin with, guys. It definitely entertained, and I enjoyed watching it because I was watching it with my family, and they enjoyed it, so I kind of enjoyed it in a way, but I couldn't help but feel like something was off. Then I found it. It's about the dad instead of exploring the people we actually care about exploring. Venus and Serena Williams. It takes a very similar approach to a true story that The Blind Side took, which basically sidelines Michael Orr, no pun intended, to tell a story about his more interesting white surrogate mother. Isn't that just so great? Thankfully, this movie doesn't have racially insensitive undertones like that movie. It even introduces what could potentially become a white savior stereotype, but thankfully doesn't really go through with it, and he's actually portrayed as quite stupid, which I always appreciate. I don't find Richard Williams interesting enough of a person to be the focal point of a 2.5 hour long biopic. Venus and Serena really should have been the people at the forefront here. The film is incredibly corny and leans heavily on the sentimental side rather than the genuine side. I mean, the movie seems to be quite aware of this, as it completely pushes into every formulated Hollywood biopic cliche, so I shouldn't be too harsh on it in that department. I don't know, I definitely enjoyed it for exactly what it was at face value, but it offered me nothing of substance at the end of the day. A fine, predictable, Oscar baity feature that didn't leave a lasting impact on me, but I'm glad it exists, and I'm glad that Venus and Serena are proud of what was made. Good for them. When this film came out, I'm pretty sure I gave this a 7 out of 10, and now it's at a 5. I feel really bad. These 5 out of 10 movies aren't really anything that I'm particularly like angry about. They're the ones I'm fairly indifferent on. That's kind of how I feel about this sequel. I really enjoyed the first Quiet Place. It's one that mostly got good reviews, and a lot of people did say there was just a lot of logical issues to it that didn't make very much sense, and I totally understood where they were coming from on that. Here, the direction, at least, the look and everything is a lot more interesting. I think the cinematography feels like it's been heightened. The problem is the movie has one of the most boring scripts for a sequel I've seen in a long time. The Quiet Place world is very interesting to me because it's like a family that's living in a world where aliens are gonna kill them any second. So you have time to spend with these characters and you get a lot of character development, but it's all done without dialogue. It's really just done through the performances, and I thought the acting in the first one was very good. This feels like a major step down from the first one, besides the visual department and the direction, like I said. Feels like a continuation of the first film, which every sequel should be, but it doesn't offer any emotional gravitas. It's all really hollow. It's like we got this perfect ending to the first film. That's it. It just leaves it up for your interpretation what's going to happen next. Alright, well, just more running around, I guess. That's really what the whole film is just people running around. They don't really have like character arcs like the first one did. There is like a setup and a payoff. Every character got their moment to shine, and here it's just them running around for the majority of the film. And yeah, if you like a lot of jump scares, good for you, but I need more than that. It does follow some cliches too. There is one moment where like there's a character and they're like, you know, about to get attacked by an alien. Another character comes from behind and they shoot them in the head. You know, the alien, not the person. As a movie, I think it's alright, I guess, but like as a sequel, I don't think it works like at all, because it just doesn't offer anything new. It's really just a continuation of that first film without any of the emotional gravitas that that first film had. Aggressively small scale, but it doesn't really offer much that I identify with in the process. It really tries to feel like it's a Ghibli movie. I think the town's called like Rosso Poco or Porco Rosso. The tone and the vibe, the energy is just all really chill and laid back, and that's cool, but there are times where it kind of demands like a real emotional attachment or a real conflict, but I just don't feel that conflict because of just how low-key the entire thing is. It sounds mean. It is actually kind of mean. This is just the kind of thing that I would want to fall asleep to. It looks nice, it's cool, it's fun to like vibe to it. I think the only reason this is above Encanto really is because I can imagine myself watching this one again, and I did find stuff in here that I did actually enjoy a lot. But at the end of the day, when it comes to Pixar and the expectation that I've set for them,
lower your expectations a few.
This is just not really one of their best films. I'm glad, at least in some ways, that Pixar was able to make something that was a little more small scale. I'm not saying they shouldn't make small scale stuff, but you still need to have some sort of emotional current flowing through it, and that's not really what Luca has. I should probably change the color here. So, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings is one that I had fun in the moment, and I barely remember anything that happened. I think what really makes this one work for me is I like the action a lot. There's some beautiful shots in here with just them fighting. There's some nice hand-to-hand combat. The choreography is amazing. I really like how this film directs its fight sequences. There are times where it relies too much on CGI. That was my big issue with the third act. It's all just very artificial, and most of the third act I just like turned my brain off and stopped thinking about what I was watching. But the first two acts I thought set up stuff well. The Shang-Chi character is very likable. All the rest of the characters are likable. It was nice to see Ben Kingsley again. Not the most interesting third act. It was sad because the action was really gorgeous in those first two acts, and the last act just like jumped off the shark. The rest was very good. This was solid. I barely remember anything about it, but I'm down to watch it again. It's not like I'm never gonna see it again. I don't think it's the most bland thing in the world. I just don't remember anything about it. So that's why I'm giving it a 6 out of 10. It is better than average. I wish I liked it more just because this was one of the first times in a while that I've seen a superhero film that's directed like a real movie. Like, it has a real vision. Comic book films these days don't do that, and it's very sad. But the Suicide Squad really proves that James Gunn is just a master at these types of films. I don't love it as much as most people do. I've seen a lot of people give it like 5 stars, say it's one of the best superhero films of all time. I haven't seen the original Suicide Squad, not because I'm uncultured or something. It just looked bad. To me, as someone who's never seen the original, I can even say that this is an improvement upon that original film. Like, my issue is really the characters. They're likable, sure, but there are attempts at really creating this emotional connection from that character to the audience, and I don't think that it always works because it focuses on having this abundance of graphic violence just to be edgy. That's kind of my issue with a lot of R-rated superhero films, is that they're so obsessed with making this like really dark, twisted thing, but it really doesn't need to go that far. I'm not saying that I can't handle the violence, but it feels very much unnecessary to the plot, and sometimes it just goes too far and distracts from good characterization. The only character I remember connecting with was the rat lady. The actors all did a good job. Every performance, every line delivery felt right to that character, and the chemistry all felt palpable. This feels like it's trying, but it also just gets distracted by the fact that they're like, oh, well, we can make it R-rated. Let's just show how twisted the mind of James Gunn is. And it just goes a little overboard, where it feels like it's just too much. You know what I mean? I enjoyed this movie. I don't think it was amazing, but it was like fine. I watched an hour of it, and then I never finished it until recently because I forgot that I started it. I like it too, just not as much. That's why it's a 6 out of 10. It's not bad. I enjoyed it, but 6 out of 10 means a little bit above average, and that's how I feel. It's a little above average, mostly because the directing is amazing. I have some conflicted thoughts on In the Heights because on one hand, I think this is a very harmless, lovable little movie that has a lot of charisma oozing out of it. I can really tell that this was a lot of people's passion project. It's just unfortunate that it suffers from an inconsistent pace, an overbloated runtime, and a lack of good characterization, even if the characters themselves are acted well with a lot of love and heart. Like I said, I just think on the writer's part, they didn't do a good enough job warming us up to these characters. Like when I see Benny walking through those doors, you can tell from their reaction that they're friends. You don't need to have them tell you, hey guys, we've been friends for 10 years, you know? You can just tell that through the acting. The performances tell you all of it. That doesn't mean that they're well developed just because they're likable and the actors seem like they have stories through the very expressive acting. The writers need to do a better job at actually warming us up to these characters, because as somebody who didn't even know that this was a Broadway play until after I watched the movie, I was like, oh, should I have done my research? You see the characters and you're like, they're likable. I like them. I like their chemistry. But who are they? It doesn't really take the time to really introduce them. It just jumps into it. The film also has an issue with just having too much to it. The film opens with Usnavi waking up in his apartment. He goes downstairs and has this conversation with Abuela Claudia, and then he goes to work and he sings his song and stuff. And then later in the song, he introduces her like we've never met her before. I'm like, we saw her in the earlier scene. Why'd you show her in the earlier scene? This film does that, where it shows characters and then it shows them again like we're seeing them for the first time. I really liked the dancing. I liked the music, even if I didn't think it was Lin-Manuel Miranda's best music. I liked the opening number and the 96,000 song. That was a good one. But for the most part, I don't remember most of the tracks because they all just sounded the same to me, which is weird because all the music in Hamilton sounds the same, but I still remember those individual tracks. Again, I think this was really likable. Like when you see Benny just going off on that pool deck, there's something about it that just gets me pumped. There's something about musicals, something that Dear Evan Hansen didn't get the memo for, is that dancing, high energy, just a lot of joy and love and talent being put on display really excites an audience. And some people dancing and smiling and laughing and having a good time. There's something that just warms my heart about it, and it gets me excited, especially if the music is just really foot stomping. But the film is also bogged down by a lot of scenes that just go on forever and don't really add much to the narrative, at least to me. But again, I just love the joy, the infectious energy oozing out of every frame of this. It's a very likable movie. For people that love it, I'm like, you know what? I respect that. It's actually something that doesn't bother me very much. I find a lot of enjoyment out of this film, and I bought it on DVD, not Blu-ray, because I'm not going that far there. I didn't like it that much. What kind of money do you think I have? It's a 6 out of 10. It's something that I enjoy, but it has its issues that kind of bog it down a little bit. Yeah, I saw the trailers for Stop and Go, and I was like, this doesn't look good at all. It really looked like this super out of touch like COVID comedy that should have came out during COVID but still would have felt out of touch then. It really just feels like a bunch of adults just laughing at the pandemic because quarantine humor is just so funny. But I was very shocked how much I enjoyed this. A lot of it is maybe I have bias because I grew up watching the original Studio C cast on their show before it turned into a piece of garbage. But the original group I really liked. They had a lot of great chemistry, and Mallory and Whitney, the two main stars of this film, Mallory also directed it along with Whitney's husband, their chemistry is so immaculate. Like, they really have this infectious energy whenever they're on screen. You truly feel like they're best friends. It's like Locke, you know, that movie with Tom Hardy where it mostly just takes place in the car. What drives most of the film is literally just the phone conversations they have. You don't meet a lot of these characters in person. It's really just the conversations they have. Something I did like about this film, the two leads never have like a single argument, which is something that a lot of movies do, where the two main leads that are so likable have all this energy and like chemistry with each other, just all of a sudden they have to like throw in some random conflict and everyone just starts yelling at each other and it doesn't feel earned. Here, they don't have a conflict with each other, they have a conflict within their own lives and they're just venting to each other, which I think is a lot sweeter. It's just kind of like random, things just kind of happen. It doesn't really have many consequences. It's very low scale, but there's so much charm to it that I kind of forgive the fact that the script is paper thin, you know? I really enjoy seeing these two actresses just have a blast on camera. It was very joyful to see. You know, there's really nothing else about it that I found all that impressive. I just thought that their chemistry was so good and it really gave me some life. I enjoy this film a lot more than I thought I would. I've gone on record saying that Edgar Wright is my favorite filmmaker working today. It's unfortunate that it happened to be his worst movie by far. This movie has been getting a lot of mixed reception. There are a lot of people that say it's one of the best films of the year, one of the best horror flicks in a while, that it plays in Edgar Wright's strengths a lot and it really sees him growing as a filmmaker, and there's a lot of people that are saying that he really went down and jumped off the shark, that it's thematically confused. Honestly, I take both of those criticisms and they contribute to my own personal opinion. I think this film is worse than the score I'm giving it, objectively speaking, but I enjoyed it, man. I really did have a fun time with it, and reminiscing about it, I'm just like, yeah, it's not that bad. I feel like it gets a lot more hate than it deserves, but I still understand where that hate is coming from. I really feel like a lot of filmmakers now feel like they need to get their hands in whatever's relevant. Ridley Scott did this with The Last Duel. It does try to tap into that whole Me Too movement. Promising Young Woman did that last year. And I'm not saying that this is a bad topic to touch on, but I don't know if Edgar Wright was the best person to tackle this subject matter, just because his type of horror is a lot more cheeky and comedic, and I'm like, you're dealing with like really serious stuff here, man. Like, I think Edgar Wright is good at making horror films, okay? But not like serious horror films. I think he's better at comedy for a reason. He just works better in a department where it's a lot more cheeky and self-aware. Last Night in Soho, there are times where I feel like it's just trying to be played completely straight. The characters feel incredibly flat. And it's weird because this is like one of the times that he's actually trying like intentionally to do that. I feel like with the other movies he's done, he's trying to make them really funny, but in the process he actually does kind of have a nice like introspective character study going on. But here it's like the opposite. Like, he's trying to do that and then it's not working, which is very strange. It sounds like I'm hating on this movie. Again, like I said, I enjoyed this one a lot. I think it's very well paced. Although I didn't think the movie was scary, I thought the concept was cool. I did think it was a fun movie to watch. But despite all of those gripes that I have with some of its thematic confusion and tonal problems, again, I enjoyed it. I thought Thomasin McKenzie was very good. She's always good in anything she's in. This film is underwhelming in a lot of areas. I was very hyped to see it. I was very excited to see it as a huge Edgar Wright fan. While it's definitely his worst movie by far, it's still an enjoyable one. So I saw There Will Be Blood for the first time this year, which is regarded as PTA's best film, but not knowing much about his other films, the only other one I've seen is The Master, and as you know, I'm not the biggest fan of The Master. I was interested to see Licorice Pizza because the name was attached to it, but if it wasn't Paul Thomas Anderson, I probably would have had no desire to see it. Cool and quiet and chill and laid back. It was like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, come on. A director kind of just looking back, reminiscing about the good days. It's very nostalgic. It's very chill, very laid back. It's got some nice, cool vibes. It's subversive for sure because of the weird age gap between the characters. One's a teenager, one's an adult. The girl is an adult, so I guess it feels a little less weird, but it's still weird. My issue really is that they have nice chemistry. The actors have chemistry, but in the writing, I don't really know if there was actually much going on. I feel like it was a lot of improv. Alana and Gary were two very likable leads. There's something very weird about this, and I don't know if anyone else picks up on it, but like both of these characters are like very sexualized by the other characters in the film. All the guys are all over Alana for some reason. All the girls are all over Gary, and I'm just like, I guess they're likable, but like from afar, like no offense or anything, but like neither of them are all that interesting from a superficial level. The movie also gets very repetitive in a lot of areas with characters like constantly bickering and trying to get back at each other. Like they're always trying to make the other person jealous by getting together with another person, and I'm like, is that all you're gonna go with? Like, maybe in one scene it's fine, but then they keep doing it over and over again. Licorice Pizza is a great movie. I love the vibe and the aesthetic. I thought PTA did a very terrific job directing the film. It's a PTA movie after all, so it's just a nice looking movie. The cinematography is excellent, and I like the performances, but it really lacks any real depth in the characters, and I feel like it had an attempt to. Like, Alana and Gary have pasts that I really want to explore, but they don't go there. I don't know if I really like the characters that much. I just like watching them, but they're not the type of people I'd like to hang out with after school. That's what I'm saying. Really great movie in regards to just the atmosphere it creates. You know, it's got like a lot of high energy to it, but after a while you're like, all right, it's time to wrap it up. You know, I still had a good time being in this world. I just wish that it left a lasting impact on me. Spider-Man does whatever a spider can. I got my Avatar shirt on. When it comes to Marvel films and Marvel properties, you know, with the shows and everything this year, it's been very disappointing. WandaVision started out good, and then it just like took a huge nosedive. The movies, like I said, have just been mostly just bland to all right. No Way Home feels like it just honors its fans with so much respect, but it knows what it's doing, because there are times where I'm like, yeah, this is a little manipulative, but like in a good way, you know? It doesn't feel like references without being earned. It's all earned. It just seems exaggerated, which is kind of the point. That's what most superhero movies are. They're very exaggerated. There are times where I feel like the film doesn't have enough stakes. I've always had problem with Marvel action, especially Spider-Man action. I don't think Spider-Man action is directed very well in the MCU. This movie just honors the legacy of Spider-Man as a character. It takes those first two films, which are just alright to me, and it gives you a greater appreciation for them, for what they set up. It's not perfect, but it is so enjoyable. It just makes you smile. It just makes you cheer, and it's one that honestly I'd be willing to watch at home. Like, even though there are times where the film intentionally puts dead space in there because they know that in the theater people are going to be cheering. I thought it was going to be very bland, and yes, the direction is not very good. Jon Watts is by no means a visionary. There are definitely editing and cinematography choices that feel like you could have done something more interesting with that. At the end of the day, I don't really care. You know, sometimes you just gotta like take your sweater off and cool off. You know what I mean? That's exactly what I feel with this. Like, there are some big blockbusters that feel like they're manipulating me and I can't have fun. Like, I can't turn that brain off like Free Guy. Here, it works because it was earned and it's aware of what it's doing. It's not perfect, but it's aware of what it's doing. It knows that. And I'm like, you know what? I respect that. And for the Spider-Man fandom, I'm not the craziest Spider-Man fan or anything, as you can tell by my t-shirt, but I actually had a very good time with this. This is probably in my top 10 MCU, to be honest. I feel very proud about this Letterboxd review that I wrote. I don't write very good reviews, but it was one of those movies where you feel like your IQ is skyrocketing when literally nothing is happening. It's just a film that's directed with such grace and elegance that really makes you feel like a pretentious film critic as you're watching it, but you feel kind of good for it, you know? So I'm gonna read this review for you.
A film that builds upon itself through its framework, the disconcerting sound design, the uneasy score, the meticulously orchestrated set pieces, the rigorous framing. There's a voracious dissection of human drama that epitomizes the power of delicate filmmaking. There's a barbarous mood wrapped around fragile individuals with subtly perpetuated attributes. There's a gloomy atmosphere which feels both gritty and graceful at the same time, allowing the slow burn to maintain an underlying ambiguity and keep the viewer locked in until the credits roll. Every fidgety finger brushing against a plastic comb, every peculiar step on a vacuous wooden floor, every noisy overlap of an ordinary thread creating a substantial rope contributes to the oddly disturbing ambiance. The feeling this gave me in regards to the aura it creates is truly indescribable. I felt hazy throughout and was left delirious, even a bit bewildered, which is both a pro and a con.
Yeah, that was this was very pretentious, but I felt very good about that review when I posted it. But yeah, I really liked this film. There was something about it because looking at it from a surface level, it's not really all that special, but there's a real dirtiness lurking underneath it. It's very eloquently directed. The score from Johnny Greenwood is by far the best score that I've heard all year. I love the music in this. It characterizes everything very well, and it creates something that feels so wholly unique. It feels otherworldly, but it exists within our world, which is very strange. Also, I want to say the sound design in this film is amazing. Like, it just characterizes each individual very well. Whenever Phil walks into a room, you just hear his boots on the floor, and you just know that it's him. You know, you just know it. It establishes everyone's presence so well just through the sound design alone. I don't know how rewatchable it is, but it's one that I really enjoyed in the moment. There's a lot that it had to offer, and yeah, go check it out if you haven't seen it. It's on Netflix. Unlike a lot of action blockbuster franchises nowadays, the James Bond films have a nice visual flair to them. They all have very nice cinematography. They feel like they're directed by real people, and it doesn't feel like any generic action schlock. There's a real energy, a real unique charm to it. It's James Bond. He's iconic for a reason. I saw the film and I was like, yeah, this is great. It's very well paced. It's satisfying for James Bond fans, even if I'm not the biggest James Bond fan. I really do appreciate how this film ended everything. And for newcomers, like, you still get a little teary-eyed at the end, you know? Like, it doesn't really matter. I just really had a good time watching this. A lot of what this film does in regards to addressing some of the more problematic things about the James Bond character is very cool and interesting to me. They got Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who did, I think, the Handmaiden show, to write some of the dialogue in here. And there's a lot of girl power, feminist undertones in here, but it doesn't feel forced, which is so refreshing to see for once. It works its way into the story without feeling like it's distracting from the narrative. Although I don't like that new 007 character. I don't know what her name is, but I don't like her. And if they make a Jane Bond, please don't make it her. Please make it Naomi Harris, who plays Moneypenny, who's way more likable. Or even Léa Seydoux. Léa Seydoux great in this movie. I forgot to say, I love her. She is so great in the film. She has a lot of really fantastic scenes. It's a very satisfying movie. It relies on nostalgia, but it still feels a little more original. It ties the knot a little better, and it feels a lot more consistent. Daniel Craig is really good in it. With Spectre, he did not seem like he wanted to be there, like, at all. And here it seems like he doesn't want to be there, but he's actually having fun with it. He's like, whatever, man, it's my last time. So he just really gets into the role and he has a blast. He really feels like he's hamming it up a little more, which maybe is against what Casino Royale set up, like a gritty reboot, but like, I don't care, man. Like, he was very fun. I really enjoyed his presence. No Time to Die was a very satisfying conclusion to this franchise. I don't really feel qualified to talk about Mask. It's one that you really just need to see to be believed. It's a very aggressively simple concept, but it's the execution of that concept that makes it so powerful. But just on paper, this concept just interests me automatically. I really gravitate towards those one-room films that can, you know, tell an entire story within one room and doesn't cut to any flashbacks or any extra visuals. It's just in that one room, so the dialogue has to open your imagination a little bit. And since the dialogue here is so amazing and involves your five senses in a really unique way, you really do feel connected to the situation. I think the movie is just so dark and dealing with such tough subject matter that I really don't feel like I'm equipped to really talk about it. But all I have to say is I'm just really glad that this movie didn't take a manipulative route to make its point. This could have easily gone towards more of a sentimental side where it leans heavily into the inspirational music and trying to find some message about religion and faith. I'm glad that they didn't go with that message because I feel like it would make it very niche and not very inclusive to a lot of other people. I feel like in that way it really allows it to become a very universal message about forgiveness without coming off as corny in any way possible. This black and white cinematography makes it feel like a classic. It feels like it's gonna last forever in time. Classical music makes it feel very refined, feels very competent and proficient. I love the feeling that this gave me. It's so warm and heartfelt, but it doesn't feel like it's trying to be. This film also benefits from almost making me cry at a couple of points because of scenes where Joaquin Phoenix's character gets out a microphone and just starts like interviewing a bunch of kids and they talk about like life experiences, and it's all this commentary on life. It's very like existential, you know, like you got the classical music and you got the images of the trees blowing in the air. It's just like, I don't know what it is, but it's like, it's really like beautiful out of body experience. But there are times where I feel like those scenes feel like they're detracting from the main narrative, but I don't really care that much just because those scenes are so impactful to me. They speak to me so well. They have so much to say about life and our mortality. I love it. It brings out a true beauty in the mundane. I've talked about that a lot on this channel with like the Before trilogy, which you all know I love that trilogy so much. Seeing real interaction, real people talking to each other. I love seeing that visualized on screen. Feels like it's like anti-technology without ever saying it. What are we doing when we're bored, when we're not doing something? We're listening to music to drown out the real noise, the mundane things. We're on our phone looking at something, we're watching something, we're listening to a podcast. There's a point where you rely on it so much that you just lose touch with reality. You forget that you're living in a real world with consequences. So that's a thing that this film really touches on, and it really wants to make a point that this is a real world we live in, and we need to take advantage of every moment we have. And while that's something that I personally don't do like at all, yet I have things like this that inspire me to actually go out and really like talk to people and make real conversation with people. It makes me want to delete social media and social interactions digitally. It does show that there is a beauty in the mundane, and I really do appreciate that message being there, even if that's not something that I actually do in my own life, and it's something I want to try doing a little more. Why did nobody watch this? It's so strange to me that Guillermo del Toro made a psychological mystery epic with an all-star cast and totally bombed at the box office. Like, I did not see a single trailer for this until like maybe a week or two before it came out. There's very poor advertising going on here. What times we live in. Anyway, Nightmare Alley is fantastic. It was so visually arresting and pulls you in from that very first scene. Something about its visual aesthetic is so immersive, but also really, really tangible. Like, I could smell the smoke in the air. I could feel the mud getting stuck to the bottoms of my shoes. I could feel the grime on every object our main character touched. Everything was just so visceral and palpable. I love cinematography that can just lock the viewer in like that. I'm also just a sucker for some good old-fashioned practicality and detailed production design and immaculate sets. I miss when movies had massive scopes like this where we could just see the world in all of its glory in the frame, and nothing was unnecessarily framed in sloppy close-ups. It's a ravishing piece of cinematic art that combines the contemporary with the antiquated. It's also rich in themes and complex with its characterization. It's such a well-written feature because when you look at this basic premise at face value, it seems to be a pretty enjoyable time with likable but arguably shallow characters. Thankfully, the exquisite writing allows the characters to flourish in really unprecedented ways. The entire film feels like it's picking the characters apart, and we really get to explore every facet of their behavior and feeling, especially the main character, but even like the side ones, like the one Rooney Mara plays. She's really the hero of the story in my opinion, and I'm so glad that they included that character. It's just so fascinating to me, and I love some good character writing and just good writing in general. Like, there's some genuinely profound statements made throughout the course of the feature. One of my only gripes with this is some of the pacing towards the beginning, and is also the 2.5 hour length. It did not need to be that long, Guillermo. Like, come on, buddy. But with that said, I think this had one of the best third acts of anything that came out last year. It was so riveting and anxiety inducing, and all of the foreshadowing from the beginning all came back full circle and communicated in a very powerful way. And I just loved how this thing wrapped up. It was so good. Overall, a really phenomenal movie, and I'm sad that we don't get more things like this these days. It really does feel like a once-in-a-lifetime gem, and I really think we need to cherish it. I feel like this movie came out forever ago because it got nominated for all those Academy Awards because they just changed the rules recently, but this actually is a 2021 movie. January, it was very early in the year, so everyone forgets about the movies that came out early in the year. But despite it coming out so early and so many great stuff coming after it, I think this may be the best film, objectively speaking, that I've seen this year. It is aggressive, but it also has kind of a softness to it that actually gives us this pathway to connect with the individual characters. That also helps that the performances also have a softness lingering underneath, and I love the way it explores, especially Fred Hampton. Daniel Kaluuya gave one of the best performances of last year, and he totally deserved that Oscar. But you know who else deserved the Oscar? Lakeith Stanfield. Lakeith Stanfield is by far one of my favorite actors working today. That's because he's just so expressive. He does something with his eyes where you can see a real deep dread in his eyes just from like one single frame. You already know what he's feeling. He is so expressive, but he never like overbloats it where like it becomes just so out of control that it's almost comical. Like, he never does that. He always keeps it low key, low bar, but you can see the emotion seeping off of the man. I really love the way it's directed too. It has real style, a real voice in its presentation. It has heart. It has something to say. It really does feel passionate in everything that it's saying. When it comes to that ending, man, like, I was so pissed off. Like, I was actually actively yelling. I haven't like vocally screamed out loud while watching something in a long time. And what it does to you emotionally is very damaging. My heart was beating the entire time, but it does have issues. I think one of my biggest issues with it is it feels like it's too smart. And I'm not saying that it shouldn't be, but there are times where everyone's talking so fast and it just has a lot to say all at once, and it's moving very quickly. So there are times where you have to like pause and go back, and you have to really catch things because people talk very fast in this. I guess that's part of my issue. Maybe I'm not good enough at paying attention to things, but that was really my only issue. The rest of it I think is pretty much perfection. Like, this is an incredible film, and everyone should go see it. It's very, very effective. Yeah, Lin-Manuel Miranda, I did not expect to be a good director, like, at all. It's shot like a real movie, unlike In the Heights, which feels like a commercial. This one feels a lot more like a genuine film. There's like a lot more grit to the screen. It feels a lot more real, tangible. I feel like I could stick my hand in the world. The big standout, I mean, everyone's been saying this, it's Andrew Garfield. Andrew Garfield is terrific in this movie, and it really makes me realize that he is one of my favorite actors working today. He has so much charm, so much charisma, so much energy. When he smiles, it just lights up your day. You love the guy. He is really great in the film. I had a total blast with it. There's a real energy coming in from like the camera work, the way the camera moves around. It's also very funny. Like, I really liked the humor in here. It felt a lot more light. It didn't feel like it was bogged down by taking itself so seriously all the time. I just feel like a real high energy where I'm just like, man, this is what I love about movies. It's a relatively small scale story. It's just about a guy who wants to create something, you know? I really appreciate the film's attention to detail on covering what's like to have writer's block and, you know, getting distracted, procrastinating, feeling the stress of like a lot of things going on in your life. It really captures that. I really did like the energy this film possessed. It was very well paced, like immaculately paced. It just goes and it goes and it goes. A number of very memorable scenes. I also love how expressive the acting is. Even by the extras, you remember them. Like that one lady in the retail store or something. It's a very expressive face. She doesn't matter to the story, but I always appreciate acting that's expressive and they emote enough for you to be like, that person has a story right there. I love when films are able to control extras in a way that doesn't make them feel like throwaway people, which is what they're supposed to be, but they actually get a lot of very entertaining actors. I don't have much else to say about Tick Tick Boom. It's one that got to me emotionally, hit me in the feels. I found it very enjoyable. It was overall just a very positive experience, and I'll be watching it again and again over the next coming years. This is one of my most rewatched movies of the year. I love it. I saw the original when I was a kid and I don't remember anything about it, so I revisited before seeing this film, which I wasn't that excited for until my friend introduced me to Rachel Zegler, who is the main star that plays Maria. She's a fascinating person. I love her YouTube channel. Creates a lot of very entertaining stuff that's very introspective, and it really offers a lot of insight in what the whole creative process is really like through her vlogs, her videos. She's a very likable personality. I am so glad that people like her get to have their own voice. Anyway, my friend introduced me to Rachel Zegler as a person that exists, and I was like, yo, I want to see this movie now, because I'm a fan of Steven Spielberg. He's always been one of my favorite directors, but as of recently, he made Ready Player One, which is by far his worst movie. He's just kind of fallen off a little bit, and it's sad because he's made some of my favorite movies of all time, and I still consider him my favorite director just because he inspires me so much. When I heard he was making a West Side Story remake, I wasn't really crazy about the idea, but then I got hype from friends and I saw the movie and I was like, hey, I'm actually interested to see how they can improve upon this film, because this movie has a lot of issues that really need to be improved, and the film improves on a lot of things. I actually think this is better than the original movie, which is an unpopular opinion, I know, but I really, really love the different changes this made, especially in regards to race. A lot of the Puerto Rican characters in the original film were played by mostly just like Europeans. This is problematic and this definitely needs to be fixed, and I definitely hate Tony and Maria's characters. Like, their relationship feels very weird and manipulative and it feels creepy, and here they do some of the same things but it's approached differently, and especially with Rachel Zegler playing this character, she's much younger and you kind of get this idea that she's a little more naive, so it's a little more understandable. With Steven Spielberg, the man's been in the business for a long time, but this is his first musical. This is the first time he's ever had to direct a musical, direct dancing sequences, and I'm just have to say, I'm very, very impressed. A lot of the criticism that Steven Spielberg gets is that he's too soft, you know, he's too whimsical, he has too much of like a cinematic magic in him, he's too childlike sometimes, and I understand that complaint a lot, but here it's West Side Story, which is about a bunch of like gang members that like dance like ballerinas in the streets, and it's kind of supposed to be taken seriously, but it's also a little cheeky. That's why it works so well, I think, is because they got Steven Spielberg behind the camera. The criticisms he gets are played as strengths in here. It's a perfect tonal mix. He manages to balance everything perfectly, in my opinion. It just has so much love pouring out of it. You can tell everyone in it really wants to be there, and it's by far one of the best shot films of the year. Man, I just freaking loved this. Seeing the dance sequences, the colors, the vibrantness. Ariana DeBose as Anita was amazing. Seeing Rita Moreno come back in the film was really heartening. I loved Mike Feist. Just listen to this inflection in his voice.
Relax, it's a social mixer, so we'll mix until the time's right to fix the Rumble for tomorrow night.
I've been talking about it enough, but all I'm saying is go watch West Side Story. So now we're coming to my number one favorite movie of 2021. This is my most watched movie of the year. This is the thing I've thought about the most this year. This is the thing that affected me the most this year. I can't properly articulate what it really means to me, and that's why I decided to write something out and record it while editing instead. Inside is a film about a multitude of things, but it's most of all about the struggle to connect with an audience and the anxiety that comes with creating content for that audience. It's about isolation. The room Bo is in for the entire film is meant to give off this feeling of claustrophobia and helps us as the audience members to become engrossed in the insanity that ensues within the presentation. I connected so deeply with the feelings that were being embodied in the many characters Burnham plays in each individual segment. The disassociative state of that funny feeling, the panic of an overabundance of digital resources and welcome to the internet, the anxiety of an existential crisis in the songs 30 and Goodbye, and obviously the feeling of inevitable defeat in the masterwork of A Song All Eyes on Me. The beauty of this music and these skits is that we don't know how much of this is the real Bo Burnham and how much of it is simply a superficial performance. What I do know though is that all of these various characters he plays have at least some truth in not how they're performed, but in what is being stated through the dialogue and lyrics. This is, to me at least, the pinnacle of artistic expression. An artist using the resources and talents that they possess to manifest their deepest, most personal feelings through creative workings. The fact that a man standing up from his chair as he's singing about healing the world with comedy was the most cinematic thing I've seen all year probably says a lot about the weight this holds. As somebody who started this pandemic in good health, both physically and mentally, but over time significantly declined in those areas, I really connected with the feeling of being lost and disconsolate during times of turmoil. The room this was shot in felt like being trapped inside my own mind and my own self-deprecation, losing all sense of hope for myself and humanity as a whole. There were points where this hit way too close to home that I didn't even know how to properly respond to it, so I just kind of sat still with a neutral look on my face. This special was hilarious, but even parts that I didn't find funny still got to me in some way. I find the unfunny humor was all part of exhibiting the struggle to connect with an audience, like I said, so nothing here really falls flat for me. I don't know what else to say. Inside is an incredibly special and personal work that has been resonating with audiences worldwide for its omnipresent themes. Bo was very careful to never specifically address COVID-19 as the reason why he was making the special. He never made a bunch of jokes poking fun at the current state of the pandemic or whatever. I feel like the fact that he never mentions it makes it all the more timeless. I could watch this in 30 years and still resonate with it because it's about isolation instead of isolation during the pandemic, you know? It relates to anyone during any time. I know I may sound like I'm talking about this a little too seriously and I sound really pretentious, but that's because I had to take a break from editing my on-the-cuff, on-camera review. I just had to write stuff down, and you know, when I write stuff down I become a little more pretentious. I apologize. I probably shouldn't be talking about this film too much because it kind of contradicts what the film is even saying about content and everyone sharing their opinion about everything all of the time, and I don't really think I should, so I'm not gonna turn this work of art into content for you. So anyway, I should probably just shut up and do my job, so here I go. Thank you for watching, everybody. I love you all so much for sticking through this whole thing. I may cut this down and make just like a top 10 or something. Just take the same video and just trim it down because this has been very long and exhausting. I've been doing this for hours, just setting up lights. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you had fun. Thank you for watching. This is Ethan Butler, and I'm out.